It also represents love and casual sex. So this is an interesting part to me. One of the first things I noticed when I started studying charts is that love is in one house, marriage is in a totally different house. And there's so many ways you could like break that down and think about that. But I thought that was very interesting. So this house is about, remember I said it was about fun. So this is about the fun, romantic part of love, where you're going out to dinner, candlelight dinner, flowers, painting the town red. This is going on trips. Like, this is the fun part of love, where we just out there having fun, having a ball. All right. And those of you that are in love or have been in a relationship for a long period of time, or maybe you've married and you've been married for a long period of time, you know that there's more to relationship than this part. But this is what this fifth house represents, the fun part. For that reason, this doesn't necessarily point to longevity. So let's say, when astrologers are looking at compatibility, one way they do this is they will take the planets from one person's chart and put them into the chart, or the wheel of somebody else, of the person that they're dating. So I take one person A's planet and put it in person B's chart to see where they fit. So if a person has Venus and Scorpio, you find the house that has Scorpio over it and you put it in there, and that's where it belongs. And they analyze it from there. So if you're dating someone who you guys have a lot of activity in one of your fifth house, like a lot of your planets fall in their fifth house, or vice versa, or maybe one or two planets, that says that you guys will have a lot of fun together and you'll enjoy spending time together. But that by itself does not suggest that that the relationship would lead to marriage. And in some cases it hasn't. And I've seen cases where it did lead to marriage, but they eventually divorced. So something to keep in mind about that fifth house, because this is all about the fun part. It's not about the deep aspect of love. And by the casual sex part, I'm sure you guys understand that these are the flings, the one night stands. They fall here in the fifth house. So in general, the fifth house represents basically the beginning of a relationship, how it starts off. But in order for it to have longevity, you'll have to see other things between the two people's charts that suggest that they will be able to do that. Another thing the fifth house represents is children. So I guess when you think about this, it makes sense given the former, given the fact that this house represents love and sex, then of course, obviously, the creation of what comes out of that, children. And so this is a house that also, this is the hard part. So technically speaking, it's supposed to represent when somebody's going to have a kid. And I've seen situations where it did, but I've also seen situations where it didn't exactly work quite like that. I will say timing when somebody's going to have a kid is challenging. But the fifth house is supposed to represent that. So when you look for the ruler of the fifth house, that's supposed to kind of guide you to when it's probably a good time for someone to produce a child. This can also represent, in terms of children, working with children, being a teacher. So it can work in the actual creation of a child, or just working with children in the form of being a teacher, maybe a counselor or something like that. All right, so and last but not least, the fifth house represents risk. Risk. Many of the things I just mentioned entail a lot of risk. The things that people have the most fun doing sometimes have risk to it. If you like going out and partying and drinking and stuff like that, there's some risk to it. You could set your drink down, someone can put something in it, and you'll be out until the next day and not know what happened to you. You could get kidnapped. You could, all sorts of things. Or when it comes to self-expression, if you're an athlete, you could get hurt. If you are an actor, an author, you could get rejected. Your book could get rejected. You may not get the part that you wanted. If you're out dating, you can go out with someone, think you've made a connection, and nothing happens. Having a child, producing a child has a risk to it. You have to make sure the child is healthy. And the act of labor in having a child is pretty dangerous for a woman. So those are all risky things to do. So this fifth house is about risk. There's risk involved in creating things and all those sorts of things. There's risk in loving another person. There's risk in being promiscuous, risk in inventing and investing in things. So this fifth house does represent risk. But as the saying goes, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Like if you don't go out there and try something, you never receive any reward. The turtle, I think that's a phrase, the turtle only makes progress when he sticks his neck out. So that's the flip side of that. Yes, all of these things require risk, but without risk, you'll never get to the other side, never get an opportunity to see the great things that you can create in life. So that is the fifth house.